Is there a spot in your home that seems to attract clutter, like it has a magnetic pull? There are always those spots in our homes, and sometimes you clean it and it looks great, and you feel like you look away for 5 seconds and look back, and it's covered in junk again. Like, if you're feeling that way, this episode might just help you. We're going to talk about some solutions that you can use to help these like trouble areas get organized so that you don't have to keep dealing with the same mess over and over.
Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renae Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage Podcast.
Now, this can be super hard because you could have a very clean home for the most part, and there are still usually spots that tend to attract clutter. And even if you don't have a very organized home, then you probably have a lot of spots that are attracting, different. uh, You might want to call them junk piles. It might be another way to phrase it. But you end up having where just lots of odds and ends get, kind of piled into a corner or on a countertop or anywhere in your home. And I want to just first mention that this is very easy to get overwhelmed. So if you have a lot of these spaces, just focus on one at a time. But if you aren't sure really what I'm talking about, so like for instance, we have a couple of things that we have kind of tackled, and one of them was our kitchen counter. It seemed like our one space, so we have a very small kitchen, so we don't have a lot of counter space to begin with, but there was always this one corner, like as you walk through the kitchen, and like exiting the kitchen into the dining room. Now, we have a door on the other side of the kitchen that is like a side door to the house. So we have an entry door, and what we would do is we would come in and we would walk, a few steps to the other side of the kitchen because it's so small. But we would end up using that counter right before you walk into the dining room, and we would just kind of dump our stuff onto it. So there was mail, there was sunglasses, keys, whatever came in the door in our hands just got dumped on this counter. And it would sit there and until we needed it again, until we were leaving and we needed to grab the keys or the sunglasses, or the mail would just continue to pile up. And eventually, Tony and I both just got really sick of it. We were like, we need to do something else with this space. So now we were able to get a mail organizer, and we're able to put it in the entryway, and we'll kind of walk through how we came and made these specific decisions. But we ended up getting a mail organizer that allows us to put our mail in the slot as we're coming into the door after we go through it. And it has little hooks on it where we can actually hang up our keys, we can hang up our sunglasses and everything as we're walking in the door. So it doesn't even make it all the way into the kitchen. And so we have this little station where we can put these things, and then we can, periodically go through that mail slot because we don't want it to be stuffed full. So we go through that mail slot, get rid of anything that needs to be, filed or responded to or anything like that. And we can get rid of it so that it stays, you know, tidy, but also like organized. Now, the other spot that we had been kind of dealing with, or I had been dealing with, this wasn't Tony. We have a bedroom, our bedrooms, we have a very, very old house, and our bedrooms are smaller, and so are the closets. So we actually have different closets. So my closet is in our guest room, which is also my office. And so this is where my clothes are. So because we have different closets, or our closets are in different rooms, we tend to have each of our own messes. So what I was doing is I would change, and you know those clothes where they're not quite dirty enough to throw in the laundry, but they're not clean enough to really hang up with your clean clothes. I would have those where it's like, "Oh, I could wear this again," and I would end up just putting it either on the floor or on the bed or wherever it would just kind of drop because I was intending to wear it again. And what was happening is I would do this for a couple of outfits. I wouldn't wanna wear the same thing the next day. I'd wanna give it a different outfit. So I would end up accumulating a couple of outfits in this realm of not being too dirty and not being clean enough. So I would end up with several items of clothing just in a heap. And it was really frustrating me because it's like it always looks messy in this room, but I didn't want to put it back in the closet. And because it's such a small closet, so what I ended up doing was getting some hooks and putting them in the closet. So I have several hooks in there so that I can, hang up any pajamas that I'm going to use again, any outfits that I'm going to use again, any jeans that I'm gonna wear again. All of those things can get hung on the inside door of the closet so that I can easily just hang them up there. They don't have to go back into the clean clothes. They don't have to go into the laundry basket yet, but they are up off the floor and they are not getting wrinkly and getting messy, but they're just hooked there and then I can wear them again when I need to pull them out. And that has solved all of those issues, and I absolutely love it. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today is when you have a spot that seems to attract that clutter or that mess, you want to really kind of evaluate what that spot is and what's actually happening to begin with. So, before you even pick one, I want you to kind of think about those areas in your home. And if one specific area comes to mind, great, let's start with that one. But if you're not really sure, kind of walk through your house and see if there's no space that tends to do this, that's awesome. But a lot of us do have a space that tends to have this, accumulation effect. So when you're kind of looking through your house, go through and see if there is a spot that tends to kind of drive you a little batty and see if there is something that we can do. So before you actually go through and start, clearing it out or decluttering it, there's a couple of questions that you could ask yourself before you start tackling that area. And a couple of those questions are, what do I want this space to be used for? So, for instance, the countertop that we were dealing with in the kitchen, we just wanted it clear. We didn't want to use that space for anything. So we had to figure out a different space for those items. And so we also asked the second question, which is what naturally gets placed here or piles up. We already determined that. I shared that with you in both of those instances, what tends to pile up and why. And then if the items don't go where they're piling up, where do they go? Do they have a home somewhere else? Now, in the case for the closet, it didn't have a home because if we didn't I wasn't putting it in the laundry basket yet and I wasn't going to put it back in the closet. So the solution was to just dump them on the floor or put them on the bed. And I needed to create a space to put those items so that they did have a home. And that's where those hooks came into play. Now, with the items coming into the kitchen, those also did not have a home. So everything was just getting dumped until it was tackled. And sometimes, people have habits of bringing in the mail, taking care of it, filing it, responding to things immediately, and then being done with their mail and recycling the rest or putting it in the burn garbage, whatever you're doing with it. If that is not a habit you have, then your mail needs a space. And that is what we were tackling is we needed to have a space for the mail until we were ready to go through all of it. We have a pretty good habit of getting the mail and kind of filtering through, getting rid of the junk right away. I mean, you can tell what is junk and what is bills and, what is, personal mail. Those types of things can be filtered right away. Don't even bother putting those in your mail slot. Like as you're walking from your mailbox to wherever you're going, just start like thumbing through those things and pull out all of the junk and put it right into your recycling. You don't need it. So at that point, you have already reduced your mail pile if that is something you're tackling. But what you want to do is you want to really ask yourself, like, is the area that you're dealing with, is that where those items go? Or do they need to find a different home? And also, if you were to organize that space, is that actually where you want those items? So let's say we wanted to keep everything on the counter. Maybe we needed to have some sort of sorter on the counter, but maybe we didn't want sunglasses on the kitchen counter, which we didn't. And that's why we put them on the wall in the mail organizer, because that is kind of like a little drop station where we can bring those items in, put them there so we always know where to find them. We don't lose them or misplace them. We always know where to find them, and they are in that zone all the time. It's not like we have to move them to a different spot where they go. So this is something that you kind of want to think through in all different spaces. And this is this is actually one reason we don't have a junk drawer. We do have, like I said, a very small kitchen, so we don't have a whole lot of drawer space anyway, but a lot of people's junk drawer tends to be in their kitchen. And we've never had a junk drawer, and the reason that is because we have a home for the items that we need, and if we don't have a home for those items, we figure out where they go and we create a home for those items. And I think that is a big key in being able to keep your home organized, is making sure that everything you have has its place. And that is why, like, when you're cleaning, you don't have to be having this, handful of things saying, where does this go? Where does this go? Where am I going to put this? And then end up, just shoving it in with something else. It actually needs a home so that you know exactly where it's gonna go, where your family knows exactly where it's gonna go, so that you can actually put things away and feel like they are organized. Whether you have a label maker or not, you can put them in a place where that is its home. So once you decide what space is bothering you, you're going to go through a couple of steps and you have a good understanding of what is currently happening in that space and how you actually want that space to be utilized. So, number one, you're going to pull everything out and then you're going to evaluate that space. And when I say pull everything out, like I mean like pull everything out and clean it out. So in the case of the closet, we were just going to pull out all of those clothes that tend to be piling up. And then you at that point you can assess what you actually need to have organized. Now, like I said, if these things aren't actually going here, you need to find a home for them or they need to be put into their homes. But if you are knowing that these items are going to be always dropped here or always put here, then is there a way to create a space where they can be there, but in an organized way? So then you're going to actually take all of the items that you have pulled out. And after you have evaluated those items to see, what needs to go and what needs to stay, if there are things that need to be put somewhere else, go ahead and put them in their homes and then see what you have left. So then you're going to take all of the items you have left and you're going to go through them one by one and you're going to choose the items that are going to stay in this little zone. And when you do that, then you can pull them aside and keep them kind of categorized if you can. So let's say you are doing this for a little drop zone, kind of like we have, but maybe it has more things. Maybe it has some shoes and some coats, and maybe you have kids that have school bags, things like that. If you have a place where they're coming in and just dropping everything, what do you want to be done? What do you want changed? Now, is this a place where it's okay to have those items placed there, but maybe they need, some sort of storage? So if shoes are getting just kicked off and scattered all over the entryway, is there actually a place for shoes? And if there's not, can you get a little shoe rack or some sort of bin where shoes can go? And it's at that point, then as people are coming in and they see the shoe rack, it can start to become a habit. Maybe it'll take a little while, but it can be start to become a habit where the shoes go on the shoe rack or the shoes go in the shoe bin. And if there are hooks or some sort of hanging contraption that you can hang your coats on and hang the book bags on, maybe you have, coats, depending on how your house is laid up or laid out, maybe you have, coat rack on top, and then you've got like a little, bar of hooks on the bottom that the book bags can go on. Or maybe you have an entry closet, which would be awesome, and be able to put those in that entry closet so that you can actually have a designated space for these items. If they don't go there, then at what point can you create a system to be able to get these things put away? So if you have all the kids coming in with book bags and dropping them, and you don't want to have them on hooks or something in the entryway or in the entry closet, or you don't have the space for that, then at what point can you make sure that the habit is becoming a consistent habit to actually put those items away? So in this case, then maybe you would want to have your kids come in and put their book bags, straight into their room. Or if you want to go through them, maybe they all go, in the dining room on the dining room table until you are able to get through and see if there's any papers or things, notes from teachers, whatever you're doing. Or maybe you put them all at the bottom of the stairs until you can kind of go through and sort them. And then maybe you are packing lunches. Maybe they go in the kitchen, in the pantry, because you're going to be putting lunches back in and they're easy to access at that point. You have to decide what works best for you, but you always want to have some sort of system in place where you actually have a home for it. You have a plan for when those things are coming in the door and where they're going to go. And then it's communicated to your family on what to actually do with these items as they come in. Now, the biggest thing when you are creating these different organized systems and kind of revamping these areas that tend to gather a lot of clutter or a lot of mess is to make the changes and also be okay with small steps, with testing it and tweaking it as you need to. So, if you create a system that is organized and it has bins and all this stuff and it's not working, you want to just ask yourself why, or ask your family if it's an issue with your family not following what you have laid out. Ask them why, because then they could tell you, like, maybe they just didn't understand what you had done and how you had organized it and where things were supposed to go. Maybe it's too hard, where as they're coming in, that just doesn't seem like the automatic reaction of where things would go. And one of the examples here might be as they're coming in and you have, let's say, I'm trying to think of something offhand here. Let's say that as people are coming in the door, as your kids or whoever, your family is coming in the door, that you want them to hang up their coats right away. But where they would hang up their coats is across the house in by the other door. Like, let's say you have two entrance doors and they're coming in by the garage and dumping their coats, and you actually want them hung in the front entry closet. Let's say that's an option. If that is the case, what about having a solution? Like, if it's not working and they're not listening and going all the way to the front entry closet to put their coats away, what if you find a different solution? So let's say you say this tends to be the drop zone for everyone. And in order to start to establish those habits of getting them to hang up their coats, what if you put like a hall tree by the door by coming in from the garage? Because at that point, they can get into the habit of hanging up their coats and putting them there and actually having it nice and neat where you don't have to worry about a pile of coats on the floor, but they are being hung even though they're not necessarily exactly where you want them. But it's starting to establish the habit of hanging the coats. And then because you actually want them in the front entryway, this is just a quick spot where they can get them, they can drop them there, they can hang them up and move into the house and get to, whatever after school chores they have or whatever the case may be. And then you have a habit where before dinner, as you're preparing dinner or something like that, maybe it's a different time of day, but whatever works for you and your family. But let's say you are preparing dinner, one of the chores that they have before dinner is to go and take all of their coats and hang them in the front hall closet. So this is just an example to show you how it might take some testing and some variations to get your family to commit to the process. And you might find that this is an easy habit for them to get their coats to the front entry hall closet. And that is just a little step to get them over there. And you also might find that down the road, as this becomes a consistent habit, that they don't want to do that before dinner. So they just start going straight to the front hall closet and hanging their coat right as they come in because they don't want to have to deal with it later. So this is just kind of a way to begin to implement those habits or routines and get it consistent and get buy in from your family. Like having something that you want and something that they want, and being able to kind of meet in the middle and make it work for both of you. But as you're getting them to the stage of doing the things that you actually want the final result to be, and having that patience to be able to move to it. Because if you've never had them hang their coats in the front hall closet, it's going to be a little bit of a big transition period for them to actually learn that and not forget. By having that initial hanging area and then establishing the habit of going and hanging the coats where they actually should go a little bit later in the day, this allows them to feel like you're meeting them in the middle, and then having them do it a little bit later so that it actually ends up having the final result that you get to choose as the parent. So that's just an example. You don't have to take that one. That doesn't have to be it, but just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about is when you are starting to take those small steps and doing this in different areas, making sure that it actually makes sense and that you take small steps and little baby steps to get to where you actually want to go so that you can build those consistent habits before just trying to overhaul everything and having everyone in the home get overwhelmed or stressed out trying to follow what you're changing. So, those are just some examples, and hopefully that was helpful. But as you get through one space, then you can move on to another space and do the same thing. And then, as you do that for a couple weeks, maybe reevaluate at that point and see, is this actually working? Could it be improved in some way? Do I need to get a couple of more bins to make it even more seamless? Do I need to reduce the amount of bins because now it's getting overwhelming and nobody knows where stuff goes? Do I need to label bins? Do I need to change the location altogether? Do we need to just get rid of any furniture in this spot so it doesn't become the drop zone and we need to give everything else homes? These are all kind of questions that you can ask yourself when it comes to these different areas that tend to collect the junk in your home or the clutter in your home. And this will hopefully help you walk through those different areas and get them organized and give you some sort of system to be able to keep them clean and tidy and organized and create the habits that are going to do that. And if it is maybe a drop zone type system, like where it is the mail or something like that, maybe it's even having a basket where you put everything in the basket and then you have a routine where at the end of the night before, as some people are cleaning up for dinner, maybe another kid has a job to actually put everything in the basket away. Maybe it is right after school, whatever it is. You could have like a collection basket basically, where everything goes in there, and then you put the whole basket away and everything goes in its home. I don't like doing this because it doesn't work for me, but that might be something that works really well for you. So this is where, again, that testing and tweaking comes into play, where you have to find what works for you and your family. So just a really quick recap on what to do as you're like clearing out these spaces is number one, pull everything out of your space and then evaluate that space. Number two, choose the items that are going to stay and try and keep them categorized so you know how to organize them in that space. Number three is to give them a home. Get them a bin, get them in some sort of container, get hooks, whatever you need to do. Make sure these items have a home and you know exactly where they're going to be, and also communicate it to your family. And number four, if it is some sort of drop zone, make sure that you are putting habits into place to make sure these items get put away later. So that is it for today. I hope this was helpful and you are able to go and tackle these spaces in your home with this episode. And you've found some inspiration and some ideas by listening to this one. And if you want to share different areas in your home that you're either dealing with or you have a before and after because you have found a solution that works really well for you, come and share those pictures in our Facebook community. We would love to see it. And if you're struggling with a space, share that photo and we can help walk through some different solutions that you might be able to try to test first and see how it works and then tweak it from there. And we would love to have you in there. So you can come join us. It is a free community and it's at facebook.com/groups/the routine advantage community. And I will see you on the next episode.
Did you love that episode or learn something useful? If so, would you do me a huge favor? My goal is to grow this podcast and help as many women as I can break free from the overwhelm so they can truly enjoy their life. The best way for me to do this is for you to leave a 5-star written review on your podcast app and to share this episode with a friend or in your Instagram stories. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful day and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.